Swarbrick on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
10 to 8 is the time after a dramatic night in Westminster last night. We have a new Chancellor. His name is Nadhim Zahawi. He's Conservative MP for Stratford, and he joins me live on the programme this morning. Thank you for being there for us, Chancellor. Congratulations. I wonder, first of all, what would you have told your 9-year-old self as you appointed into that job? Your path into this role is unique.
It's been an incredible journey. I came to this country at the age of 11, couldn't speak a word of English. I now am the Chancellor for this great nation and entrusted with the stewardship of the economy. And, of course, the member for Shakespeare, the heart of England. I pinch myself every morning when I think about the opportunity this country delivers for an immigrant boy born in Baghdad. It is a truly great country, in my view, the greatest in the world.
I wonder then how it feels to be appointed Chancellor in the dying days of this government.
Well, I think the team and the Prime Minister is now focused on the second half of this Parliament. And I would describe his focus in 3 words: delivery, delivery, delivery. Why? Because he knows that we've come through a global pandemic. This is like a world war that we've fought against the virus. And of course, war is raging on our continent, which very few people anticipated. And he is focused on making sure that we help those people that need that additional help with the cost of living, with the spike in energy costs.
Well, are you going to cut fuel duty, as your predecessor was suggesting?
So today is the first personal tax cut in a decade, with £330 for 30 million people. And I'm grateful to my predecessor for delivering that.
But what do you want to do? You're in the job, there you are. You're looking at it all.
It's the first day in the office. I will review everything. Nothing is off the table, and I will happily come back on your show or Nick Ferrari's show when he's back from holiday and share the evidence with you. My focus is on rebuilding the economy and growing the economy and bearing down on inflation. Inflation, if allowed to get out of control, is deeply, deeply damaging, especially for the most disadvantaged families in our society that we're trying to help.
You are the third Chancellor in Boris Johnson's government. The first, Sajid Javid, resigning yesterday, said that the vote of no confidence that was held into Boris Johnson was a moment for humility, grip and new direction. I regret to say that this situation will not change under your leadership, the Prime Minister's. Will the Prime Minister change?
Well, I think what you saw last night from the Prime Minister in that interview was an apology. He explained that, with the benefit of hindsight, he'd made a mistake in appointing Chris Pincher to the position of Deputy Chief.
So he is changing.
You know this, Tom. Tom, you know this because you've been close to politics, that we make decisions, whether it's Secretaries of State, Chancellors or Prime Ministers, at warp speed. The PM was at a Commonwealth summit, a G7 summit, a NATO summit, and we don't get every decision right every time. But I think actually it's good leadership to come out and say that I made a mistake and I'm sorry for that. And as part of my role,
it was forced
and
out
taking
of him,
collective responsibility. What's that?
It was forced out of him. He could have said this on Sunday. He could have said it on Monday or Tuesday. He said that he forgot. When did the Prime Minister remember that he was aware of specific allegations and investigations into Chris Pincher?
Right, so let's look at the that particular allegation that was made against Chris Pincher whilst he was in the Foreign Office. That was investigated and it was resolved. The Foreign Secretary would have been briefed about this.
Yep. So when did the Prime Minister remember
and
that?
I think the Prime Minister is right to apologise, because with the benefit of hindsight, look, you know this, Tom, because you've been there yourself. We make decisions literally at warp speed, and the Prime Minister was in the middle of 3 big summits, right? And this happens. The right thing he did, in my view, was to come out and very, very openly say, look, with the benefit of hindsight, I made a mistake.
Sorry, but my government. Back to the critical issue then is, well, if he'd forgotten, if he had glossed over it because he was very busy making decisions at warp speed, at what stage in the last few days did the Prime Minister remember that he had been briefed about those specific allegations regarding Chris Pincher?
Well, again, all I would say to you is when the Prime Minister realised he'd made a mistake, he came out and explained that and said, with the benefit of hindsight, that I made a mistake. I think that's good leadership to come out and say that, to say, look, I don't get every decision right.
So he remembered
he does get the
that
big calls, right? And you know that on vaccine, of course, on
with respect,
the
Chancellor,
war
you're not quite answering my question. The question is whether when the Prime Minister remembered about that he was told around Chris Pincher, did he remember yesterday?
All I can say to you is that the Prime Minister makes decisions, as you know, every single day on many, many subjects, gets briefed all the time about all sorts of issues. When he realised he had made a mistake, because with the benefit of hindsight, he shouldn't have appointed Chris Pincher, he came out and apologised for it. And I think that's in my view, that's the right thing to do, and now focus on delivery. So we've got the second half of Parliament to focus on this.
He didn't forget, did he? The truth is, he didn't forget. He knew he'd been briefed. He tried to style it out. He got caught, and he had to apologise, and it's led to the resignation of some of your colleagues. How could anyone trust a word that comes out of Downing Street?
Well, first of all, I don't agree with you. I think actually I trust the word of a Prime Minister who's big enough to come out and apologise and say, I made a mistake. With the benefit of hindsight, I shouldn't have appointed Chris Pincher to the role of Deputy Chief. My government is one where anybody who feels they've in any way been abused
your own
or
ministers,
harassed, or in any way feels that they need to make a complaint, should come forward and make a complaint.
Your own
And there is no
ministers,
room in his government
Chancellor,
for abuse of power.
Have been embarrassed on the media this week because they cannot trust what Downing Street has been telling them about this specific issue. They've had to distance themselves from the very heart of the Johnson government because they can't trust what they're being told. Why should the public?
You agreed with me a few moments ago that we make decisions at warp speed in government. We don't get every decision right. I think it's important to put that on the record.
There's a difference between getting decisions wrong
and when you get decisions wrong, you should come out and...
Yes, there's a difference between U-turning and misleading.
Well, I think the Prime Minister did the right thing to come out and explain and apologise.
But he misled for 5 days. Downing Street misled your colleagues in Cabinet. They misled ministers about the facts around this because the Prime Minister did get briefed about specific allegations on Chris Pincher, didn't he?
But you also agree with me that the Prime Minister has had 3 summits, international summits to deal with, is making decisions at speed, warp speed, as I described it earlier, and made a mistake, right? We agree on that, Tom. If we agree on that, do you then agree that he made the right decision to come out and apologise and explain that with the benefit of hindsight, he shouldn't have appointed Chris Pincher?
Hindsight was known in advance,
that's a yes.
The hindsight was known in advance. He got caught telling mistruths, arguably, again.
Hold on a second. First of all, the allegations in the Foreign Office, when he was Foreign Secretary, were investigated and resolved.
Yes, but the point is he knew about them.
All I'm saying to you is, when you're making decisions and being briefed, and then moving on to the next big decision that you need to make as Foreign Secretary, it's only right that if you make a mistake, you come out and admit it. That's what the Prime Minister did. I genuinely say to you that he did the right thing. That's good leadership in my book. Those people who are egging us on, by the way, to get rid of the Prime Minister are people like Alistair Campbell. And wherever Alistair Campbell is at, you want to be on the other side of that argument.
Well, tell that to Sajid Javid. Tell that to Rishi Sunak. They have left government last night because they do not, in part, trust the Prime Minister. How can...
Well, they worked very hard.
Trust him and they don't?
So they worked very hard in government. They've written to the Prime Minister. He's written back to them, acknowledging their hard work. In my view, there are no easy options here. We've got to make sure that we, as a team, stick together, focus on delivery, because ultimately what we'll be judged on. People are struggling with their weekly shop.
They've walked away when the opportunity was there.
No, I don't believe that. No, I don't believe. All I'm saying to you is people are struggling with their electricity bills, with their weekly shop. There is war waging on our continent. We have to rebuild the economy. That's very much my focus, and grow the economy. We've got to deliver on the skills agenda. that I was so passionate about and focused on. I want to make T levels as famous as A levels, so people have different runways for their career to take off on. We've got to make sure we deliver on national security abroad and at home. 13,500 more police officers on our streets. That backlog in the NHS, Steve Barclay will continue to bear down on. We've got to bear down on inflation. And we've just delivered the biggest personal tax cut in a decade. That is what your listeners are interested in.
Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak are on the same side as, you mentioned, Alistair Campbell, in not trusting the Prime Minister. Why is that?
So, with all the respect for Sajid Javid and Rishi Sunak, I genuinely think that
they're wrong.
This is not the time to divide. This is the time to come together and to deliver for the country. We have some massive challenges. We have a global battle against inflation at the moment that's raging in the US, in Germany, in Canada, and here in the UK. And we have to make sure we focus on this. Turning on one another does not deliver those additional pounds into people's accounts, £330 today into 30 million people's accounts. Why? Because we're focused on being on the side of those who are really hard pressed.
Okay. Final question then, Chancellor. Can you rule out an early general election?
So the Prime Minister will make a decision on any general election. All I can say to you, my focus
Have you talked to him about that decision?
work. No, but my focus is very much on making sure we rebuild the economy post the pandemic, the cost of the war in Ukraine, the illegal invasion of the Ukraine. People understand there is a cost to that,
Sure. But
and then bearing down on inflation.
The Prime Minister told Nick last week that it would be a very bad decision to have an early general election. Is that still the case?
He will make that decision, and ultimately my role is to make sure
So it's not
deliver.
quite a no.
Well, no. All I'm saying to you is the Prime Minister will make that decision. But what he said to Nick Ferrari, and that's on record. All I'm saying to you is that our focus in the second half of this Parliament is to make sure I rebuild the economy and grow the economy, that we deliver on the infrastructure investment that we're making, that we deliver for those hard-pressed families that need that £330 that we delivered today in the first personal tax cut in a decade. Those should be our focus, because ultimately, what the polls say today is a snapshot of public opinion, very much based on seeing a divided party. In my view, that's heartbreaking and wrong. We need to come together and deliver, because they will judge us on outcomes, on what we've delivered for them in the second half of this Parliament.
Good to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Best of luck in the new job. Nadhim Zahawi, Chancellor of the Exchequer, Conservative MP for Stratford. We'll come to more of your thoughts in a few moments' time. The news at 8 on LBC is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.